Hi, I'm Khanisha Foster. I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, and today I am directing for colored girls who consider suicide when the rainbow is enough at Kansas City Rep. So I was an actor and a writer before I became a director. Directing found me because I had this kind of love of theater and space and viewpoints, and I really am thrilled by humans. My aesthetic is slapstick and heartbreak because I like a big old laugh right before we break your heart. And my career has been mostly where cultures collide. I'm black and white. My dad was a Black Panther. My mother's family invented bubble wrap and brought Piggly Wiggly to the Midwest. They are very, very different. So I sort of get how people listen in different ways and connect in different ways. The set itself looks like just a black box, and we forgot to build a set. And then it opens up and all these huge colors burst through, and we decide when we want to show you our colors, and we decide when we want to pack them up and put them away. Because the play looks at when our bodies are violated and our spirits are violated, and also when we celebrate together and when we're getting it and when we're on the dance floor. And so that process was intricate because we had to look at how do you get a set that breathes. And then we've been with our actors for 5 weeks, and we opened tonight. So theater for me is a way of alleviating shame. So we tell these stories. It could be big shames, like big secrets of your life. They could be the tiny shames, like I'm on Facebook too much. But then you go into a theater and you sit in the audience and the lights turn off, and then all of a sudden they start doing a play about that thing that you don't tell anybody. In our show there is a whole lot of stories about physical abuse, both sexual and physical against the body that's not sexual, as well as manipulation. And those are delicate to make plays about. They're delicate to talk about. The subject matter is touchy, but if you tell a half-truth about any of those things, then every person who's in the audience who's had that happen to their body, you're doing them a disservice. So what we're looking at now in theater is what is safety versus what is being comfortable. And you have to be safe, but do you have to be comfortable? You have to actually tell the truth. You have to get dirty and gritty, and you have to sob sometimes and rage sometimes and twerk sometimes, which is also part of our show. You know that in a theater, an audience's heartbeat will sync up, and when you're in a theater and something happens, you lean in, but when you're, like saying you're seeing a movie, you lean back. So that lean in is because there is an electricity between you and the performer. They collect love notes so they can read them before and after the show, since it's like a difficult show to perform. It's opening night, so we say thank you to everybody. So I made a basket of things that nourish. I brought them a bunch of things that will be good for their bodies, so that when they're running the show, they'll know that we're thinking of them. So if you are going to have a cast of people that are people of color, you want to look for an artist who's a person of color to lead, because there are things you just innately understand. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't collaborations that are special collaborations. They've been built in certain ways, and it's not innately about that cultural perspective. But look, man, if you're trying to claim that you understand the whole truth of a culture and the plays about that, nah. It's dangerous. It's actually dangerous, because there are details to be thought of, not just what the play means, but what kind of language is actually hyper-aggressive, even though it feels really normal to you. Also, just giving your cast the ability to have a sense of humor, as opposed to feel like they're on their guard all the time, which I think is a really important part of what I try to do in my work. Is we're gonna throw down with these terrible topics. How do we also laugh? And being a person of color is actually a lot about joy, and often people don't understand that when they direct our work. It happens to me especially when I'm writing and I'm getting notes back, and often everybody wants to take their notes, but you gotta ask yourself as a person of color, is this a note that makes my piece better, or is this a note that talks me out of myself? Because often they'll ask you to change something that is actually innately true to who you are, it's just foreign to them. So now you've changed it, and then you go back to your community and you're like, oh, here's the piece. And then they try to look at the piece but they don't see themselves in it anymore, right? So maybe the person who gave you the note thinks it's fantastic, but nobody actually represents does. And that happens actually to me a lot, especially because I'm like a code switcher because I'm black and white. Code switching, initially code switching was thought of as when you have to change your voice to something inauthentic for your own safety or care or success. But I'm mixed race, so for me, code switching isn't about that. Code switching is about all of these multiple parts of my voice that are all real and being able to use all of them, even if it's in the same sentence. If I'm talking to you, I might be using a voice that's very similar to your own, not intentionally, but just because I hear what you say and I respond that way. But then let's say my dad walks in, I'm gonna talk very differently to him, right? So I'm black and white and mixed, and I consider myself all of those things. I believe my identity is black, my identity is white, my identity is mixed. And there's a misconception that me being all of who I am is me fronting on you. And it's just not true. So mixedness, there's a study that came out a few years ago that says that people find mixed identity cognitively disorienting because we only understand one thing to be true. So when two things are true, it feels like that person's a liar. It means a lot of my life is spent explaining my identity to people, which is exhausting. This is a call and response play. So call and response, like in black theater, we speak to each other. So you might have been taught that you go to the theater and you're supposed to, the proper way to do it is to sit and you turn off your phone and then you're very quiet and then you don't say anything. If it's funny, you may laugh. And then at the end, you applaud politely. But that's not black theater, it's almost rude. I am in conversation with you. I have said something to you. I want you to speak back to me. If you want to dance, dance. If you want to shout out to the performers, shout out to the performers. If you want to stomp your feet, we still don't like cell phones because you don't want it to ring during that moment. But even for me, sometimes I'll sit behind someone there on their cell phone and I'll feel annoyed. And then they'll turn around after and they got all these questions about the show and they were completely engaged. So even cell phone culture, should that be completely absent from theater? I think it's debatable. Even though I do not want the phone to go off during the finale, that's very emotional. But I also don't want people to be like, I can't go to the theater because I don't belong there. I want to direct Fairview. I also want to direct a clown show. I also want to be in a clown show. I like clown. Not like clown like red nose, curly hair, although the red nose is sometimes there, but maybe you might see it in European styles. Basically, I come out and I use my body to reflect truth, and there's comedy in that. So I found this amazing clown teacher, and he's mixed race, and I noticed when he would perform, he would I thought his body would code switch. He would just start breakdancing in the middle of one of his things, and I was like, yes! If I had all the money, the time, the resources in the world to fix everything I've been talking about, what would I do? I'm gonna sound ridiculous. I would invest in a space with amazing clown teachers, and I would make collaborative pieces with the clowns. Because clown is no bullshit. So it's if I see you fronting, I'm gonna mirror that back to you. And I think play is the best way to get to somebody's soul, personally. So we don't really listen when we hear speeches. We always listen for what confirms what we're right about. Sometimes story is a really effective way to listen. We start to hear what someone's doing. But physical, when you can't hide behind words, when people are just looking at the way they move in the world and looking at power dynamics with their bodies, I legit think that clown could save the world. I know that people will think that's ridiculous, but I legitimately think that. And I've seen it. I've seen it when you get a group of people together that feel like they can't communicate, and then you get them to play, then all of a sudden, all this magic happens. I'm Khanisha Foster, and I am a theater director.